Happy birthday is the sort of congratulations that gets worse with age. In New Zealand, however, for the past half century, it's actually gotten better. Well, that is, until this year. I'm headed to New Zealand's birthplace, Waitangi, on its birthday, to tell you why. Unfortunately, because this year is such a big deal, just about everyone in the country is trying to get there, and the roads were backed up for miles. So I hopped out of the car I was in, and now I'm hoofing it, 3 miles through subtropical forest. I'll talk to you when I get there. Okay, here we are at the annual Waitangi Day celebration, where tens of thousands of people have come to commemorate New Zealand's birthday, the 1840 signing of the Treaty of Waitangi, or Te Tiriti o Waitangi, an agreement between British and native Maori leadership that gave birth to what we now know as New Zealand, signed right here on this lawn. The thing is, Waitangi Day has only really been a day of celebration since about the 1970s, when New Zealand's jurists began to revise their understanding of the treaty, transforming it from a tool used to dispossess Maori of their rights and lands into a key document defending those rights. Yet, the mood here this year is a little less jubilant than normal, because the current government wants to reverse these revisions, a move that could be disastrous for the Maori. So, what is it that keeps getting reinterpreted, and why does it matter so much? Back in the 1830s, the British didn't technically have any legal presence on these islands, but some British subjects had begun to settle here. Unfortunately, lawlessness proved an issue among some of them, so some Maori leaders invited the British to establish a government here, to keep them in line. In February of 1840, a few representatives arrived to do just that. In only 4 days, the treaty was drafted in English, translated overnight into Maori, and within just a few days signed by several dozen chiefs, before being copied and sent across the islands, to be signed by hundreds more. You may have noticed a potential problem: that translation. You see, a few key words in the Maori version don't compute perfectly to English and leave one crucial question unanswered: whether Te Tiriti preserved Maori sovereignty, that is, self-rule in their lands, or merely property ownership, subject to the authority of the British Crown. And that's a big disagreement, so it shouldn't come as any surprise that when the British began asserting their sovereignty, the Maori, who didn't believe they'd ceded anything like that, balked at the ambition and went to war over it. The story of how that all happened is way more intriguing than you could even imagine, and you don't want to miss our 20-minute deep dive into that drama coming out in 2 weeks. So, subscribe. Anyways, after the wars, the British confiscated swathes of Maori land and abused the treaty's language to justify massive land purchases at fire sale prices. At first twisted beyond recognition, the treaty eventually fell out of legal use entirely by the 1900s, when by force of arms and sheer demographic pressure, British sovereignty was all but certain. But the Maori didn't forget Te Tiriti o Waitangi. As they grappled with the existential question of survival in this new country, that agreement, however hastily written or poorly translated it might have been, remained solid proof of their rights. But it wasn't until 1975, after decades of pressure, that the government finally began taking these demands seriously and established the Waitangi Tribunal, whose mission it was to look into the history of land seizures and correct violations of the 1840 treaty. Over time, the tribunal's power grew, and New Zealand's courts formally codified the Waitangi Treaty as binding law. More reforms followed, granting Maori special sovereign rights and input in key areas of government, like natural resource management. All of this was based on the notion that the treaty signed in 1840 guaranteed the Maori not merely property rights, but sovereignty over their lands and possessions, a hugely consequential reinterpretation that transformed how New Zealand was governed. But this interpretation is far from written in stone. Last October, a new Conservative coalition government was elected to run New Zealand, and one small party that made it in the coalition, the ACT Party, believes that this interpretation of Te Tiriti undermines the principle of equality before the law. They want to hold a referendum on Maori co-governance and reinterpret the principles of Waitangi to reduce or abolish special Maori rights, a potentially tragic reversal of gains made since the 1970s. Yet Act's appeal to the principle of equality before the law, while admirable in concept, is a sort of logical trick. First, because if the rule of law is the core principle of a just society, and it is, then surely that includes faithful legal adherence to lawful treaties, such as Titiriti o Waitangi, even retroactive enforcement where those terms were illegally violated in the past. And second, because to subject the Maori to the same law as other Kiwis preempts the very debate, which is about whether the treaty guaranteed Maori special sovereign rights not accorded to just any other citizen. That said, not everything ACT or the other conservatives want to do would be a violation of the Waitangi Treaty. Today, special rights accorded to Maori include priority access to healthcare ahead of other New Zealand citizens. Something that doesn't really have anything to do with what the Treaty of Waitangi was about. For now, it looks like the senior coalition partners might not be with ACT on all these measures, but only time will tell. One thing we do know for sure though, while every Waitangi Day comes with its share of controversy, and for many Maori it's a painful reminder of past and present woes, this year it cuts deeper, revealing just how tenuous a foundation Maori rights rest on. A few vital words, and little more, which for most of New Zealand's history amounted to nothing.